Have you ever started the year with big ambitions and a desire to take on the world and get a lot done, only to have those goals or those ambitions fizzle out after a couple of weeks or months? If so, you're not alone. Happens to, I think, pretty much everybody, but it's particularly a challenge for leaders, busy professionals, small business owners, because we have so many other things that we're trying to accomplish that sometimes those important goals or objectives get lost. So what do we do about that? Well, I want to talk to you today about a tried and true annual strategic planning process that I use and can be highly effective for you if you lead a team, an organization, or a business. And we're going to be following along with a blog post that I wrote. So if you're interested in learning more about this topic or diving a little bit deeper, you can definitely check that out. Just head over to davidmacon.com. Check out the blog and look for the annual strategic planning post. And I'm also going to be following along with some of the social media content that I put out on this topic. So if you're interested, definitely go follow and subscribe. We'll have my social handles at the end of the video, so you can check it out there. But first up, what I want to talk about is tips to have an effective annual strategic planning process. And really the first step is to establish your OKRs. And if you have never heard of an OKR, you're not alone. If you've been in the business world for a while, you may have heard of things like KPIs, metrics, things like that. It's essentially the same concept, but it lands somewhere between a KPI and a SMART goal. So it's an objective and a key result tied together. And really that serves as a guiding light for your team or your organization of what we need to accomplish that year. So let me kind of walk you through a couple of examples here. So let's say we start out the year and one of our objectives is we want to improve employee retention. So that would be our objective, right? And so from that, we need to determine what are the key results that would allow us to achieve that objective. So this can look a couple different ways, and usually you have more than one key result per objective. Key results can be a metric, so something that's numeric, and an example of that would be reduce annual attrition by 15%, right? So that is a metric that's reportable, and that would be similar to maybe a KPI that your organization currently tracks. Another metric might be improve eNPS by 17%. So both of those key results, right, if we achieve them, are going to support our overall objective, which is to improve employee retention. Now, a key result can also be something that is definable. You can quantify it, right? There's kind of that line in the sand. Did we hit it or did we not? And a couple examples of key results that would support the same objective but aren't necessarily a metric or a KPI would be something like conduct a market rate analysis. So what we want to do is compare, the wages and salaries of our current employees and compare that to other companies in our same industry that operate in the same geographical area to determine if we're paying competitively, right? So you would be able to determine, did we do a market rate analysis, yes or no? So that would be a key result that ties into the objective, right? If you do a market rate analysis, that alone is not guaranteed to accomplish the objective, but it's going to support you, your team, your organization in achieving that. And then this is something you could then take and assign to a department or a person in your organization and ensure that it gets done, right? There's a clear, did it happen or did it not? And that's why it's considered a key result. So a similar item would be a benefits analysis. And we can determine, did we do it or did we not do it? And so it's a clear result that we achieved or we didn't achieve. So another key result might be doing a commission attainment analysis. So looking at all the people in your sales organization, which maybe has higher attrition and lower retention than maybe other departments, and look at how often are people actually maximizing the commission plan. And if that's a lower number, then you could reevaluate that, right? So again, key result, we did it, we didn't do it, and then we had more data to make a decision with. So really that's going to be the foundation of your annual strategic plan. You're going to look at what are your overall strategic objectives for the year and then boil that down to OKRs, right, at the company level. And then we'll talk about how to break that down even further. But that's really going to be kind of your initial point for developing those annual strategic plans is those OKRs. And like I said, if you've never heard of an OKR, don't worry about it. You'll get the concept right away. As you start working with it, you'll definitely pick it up. It's been around since the 70s, but it really didn't get popular until around 2010 when Google started using OKRs and everybody wanted to do what Google was doing. And so everybody jumped on that bandwagon, right? So it's become very pervasive, and a lot of tech-centric organizations in particular utilize OKRs. So that's just a little background on what it is, if that's a new terminology for you. So as we take a look at the visual here, what you can see is we've got our big annual OKR, and then we've also got quarterly and monthly OKRs as well. So let's look at an example of one of the key results that we discussed in our kind of sample scenario, which was that commission analysis. So that might be something that you only do in Q1. So we're going to do it at the start of the year, we're going to get information, and then we're going to make decisions based on the data that we get. So that would be an example of a kind of one and done key result that supports that annual OKR. However, you might also say, hey, we're going to make this something that we do every quarter. So every quarter, we're going to do a commission attainment analysis. And so that's a key result that's going to repeat several times throughout the year, or you could break it down monthly. So that's one way to look at it. Another thing that you might do, going back to our sample, was we said, let's improve ENPS by 17%. So in this example, you may not want to start out and say, hey, Q1, we're going to get all 17% of that improvement. So you might want to break that down into, hey, we want 3 to 5% improvement in the first 3 quarters of the year, right? Or, we're going to do this monthly. That's probably a little much for an ENPS survey, but for our example, we want a 1% improvement or 1 to 2% improvement every single month. And by the end of the year, we should have a 17% improvement if we, kind of average 1 to 2% every single month. So that's kind of an example of how you break this down. And what this is going to do is a couple of things. First and foremost, it's going to give you clarity every single month, every single quarter of what you need to do. And it's going to start to give you that sense of progression, right? If you're hitting your key results on a monthly basis, and then on a quarterly basis, you're going to know that you're on track for the rest of the year. And that momentum, those little wins are going to build up. And psychologically, that has an impact on us, right? So we're more invested in continuing toward that goal. Now, the opposite is also true, that if you're measuring this monthly and quarterly and you are not on track to get that, big objective that you set out for that year, now you can adjust and realize, man, our plan isn't working, or, we're crushing it. We need to increase our key result for the year or something like that, right? So you can make those course corrections by breaking this down into quarterly and monthly key results. And that's going to be really important. All right, so what's the next thing that you need to be thinking about when it comes to your annual strategic plan? So I just talked about, you may need to adjust your plan of action or how you're going to accomplish those key results. And so one of the ways that you can do that is pretty straightforward. Basically, we're going to extend that visual just a little bit further. And you see that you still have the annual OKR, the quarterly OKR, and the monthly. And then you see the weeks and the days, right? And that's just a visual of an entire year. And you see on the right, you've got the arrow that's got your daily actions, your weekly actions, your monthly actions, and your quarterly actions. So as you're, sitting down at the start of the year, you're developing your OKRs. Probably the most important thing that people do not spend time thinking about is the action plan. And so you're going to break each of those key results into daily actions, weekly actions, monthly actions, and quarterly actions. And this is important for a number of reasons, because you want to have small steps that you can take incrementally to achieve those key results. Instead of waiting for these, big chunks of time, you can be making that incremental progress, gaining that momentum daily, weekly, and monthly. So it's really important that you have those activities. The other thing that's really important is you can assign owners to each of those activities. And so if you're off track with the key result, you know who in the organization is maybe dropping the ball, or if you're, crushing one of those key results, then you know who's doing an excellent job, and, give that person some kudos and make sure that they stay on track throughout the rest of the year. So defining key activities is an essential part of the annual strategic plan. Again, it takes time, and so a lot of people skip this step, but this is where the rubber meets the road, and this is where you're going to define the specific activities that are going to help you achieve the key results and ultimately your strategic objectives. Okay, so another step that gets skipped, unfortunately, is ensuring that each employee understands their role in these OKRs. And this is so critical, because if each employee doesn't understand how they fit into the big picture, they're not going to be invested in the actions and key results that lead to that objective. And so the mistake a lot of leaders, business owners, department leads, those sorts of things, they make is they send out an email or they put a couple slides together, in a kickoff deck, and they never revisit it, or they never make it personal to the individual team members. So we communicate, this is what we're going to do. These are the objectives that we have. Here's the key results I expect, but they don't actually take that down to the individual employee, right? So how does the very frontline employee tie into the big OKR? And if you don't take the time to do that, and this really happens manager to employee, one-to-one, and breaking that down, then you're going to have a miss because you don't have every person working in the same direction, and that's critical to achieving your strategic plan. So you have to make sure each employee understands exactly how they fit into it. And here's a great visual that kind of represents that. This is from On Strategy, not sponsored, not affiliated, but if you'd love to sponsor me, I would definitely not turn that down. But anyway, you can see here that you've got your overarching strategic objectives for the organization, right? You see those are generally created by the executive team. If you go a level below that, you have company objectives. So these are company-wide, and that's created by a department, VPs, executive team, right? Kind of a corporate structure, just to paint this picture for us. And then from there, you have the key results, which are by business department. And then below that, you also have kind of individual key results. So we're taking these big goals, these big objectives, and we're breaking that down into kind of team level or department level key results and then individual employees. And so it's really important that every employee understands how they fit into that big goal. And as those little goals stack up, right, as those little actions stack up that we looked at earlier, every one of those incremental actions, every one of those incremental key results leads up to that big annual OKR. So if you're a leader and you don't currently have an annual strategic planning process in place, I would recommend you start here. And it doesn't matter how small or large your organization is that you oversee, this is a great place to start. And it doesn't matter if it's January or June, right? You can use the same process if you want to, start a plan for the second half of the year, a quarter, a month, or a week, just to get that muscle memory of how to utilize the structure. And then when the next year rolls around, usually November, December timeframe, start thinking about the year ahead, start establishing and communicating and breaking down those key activities. And it's a really simple way to do that. And so if you want a little help to get started with that, just head over to davidmacon.com, check out the blog link, look for the annual strategic planning, and at the bottom of that post, I've got that free resource that you can download and get started with OKRs and the annual strategic planning process in your organization. Hey, as we wrap up here, I just want to thank you so much for watching or listening. And I was wondering if you could do me a favor. And no, I'm not going to say the cliche, like, comment, subscribe, although those things are great and would be very much appreciated. No, what I'm asking you to do is I would love it if you would share this with somebody you know. It could be somebody in your network. It could be somebody that you manage. It could be a peer in your organization. Doesn't really matter. What I would love for you to do is share this with them and then have a conversation, discuss this topic, and then take the information that you've learned here, that you've discussed, and then actually apply it. Too often, what I see is, myself included, we will read a book, we'll listen to a podcast, we'll watch a video like this, and we'll have all these ideas, and we'll think, oh, that was really interesting, I should do that, right? Or you think about ways you can apply this, or take parts of it and inject it into your career or your business, but we never do. And so what I would really appreciate is if you took action on today's information. And there's 3 ways you can do that. Again, share, discuss, and apply it. And that would mean the world to me. And hey, if you like this kind of content, stick around. We'll be posting more of it. And thanks again for checking us out.